Hi there, this is Dennis Velco with OutBüro Voices. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode where we have engaging conversations with LGBTQ community leaders, entrepreneurs, and professionals. And Andy Cramer, who we have the honor and privilege of speaking with today, he fits all three of those categories. He has an interesting story, so we're going to jump right in and let him begin to share his background. Welcome to the show, Andy.
Thank you, Dennis.
Well, Andy, I like to, I can't possibly restate all of your rich and wonderful history. So I would prefer if you could give us, kind of a 5-10 minute kind of overview. I know you've done a lot. But if you could kind of do that, and then we'll kind of transition into what you're working on today.
That'd be great, Dennis. I grew up in upstate New York, 72 years old, and I was born 4 years after World War II. And as I was growing up, I grew up in a small town. Being gay, I was at a point where Allan Turing was castrated for being a homosexual. Being homosexual was looked down upon, was illegal. And you could imagine growing up in the 50s, I couldn't be any more in the closet. Grew up, I was a little strange compared to everybody else, and I always felt a little bit out of it. I grew up. I went to college at the University of Pennsylvania. I went to the Wharton School of Finance and Commerce, and after graduating, I headed out west, and I opened my first retail store. It was in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And when I graduated from school, most of the people that I graduated with went to New York. It was in 1970, so the war was going on. And I decided I'd rather be a hippie than be an investment banker. And I stayed in Albuquerque for 4 years and then migrated to San Francisco. I opened my first store in San Francisco in 1975, and I kept those stores for the next 20 years. We grew to having 10 stores. They were very popular. They were in the heart of Castro Street, and which had then become the gay place for people to go from all over the world that were absolutely beaten up and hurt. We were very, very popular. We grew from 1 to 10 stores. We brought Halloween to San Francisco in a big way. We supported all the large parties. We would give trips around the world for contests. Our sweepstakes were famous. So we would give 2 round-trip tickets, first class, and get lots of people in the store. The music was always pounding. It was always good. People enjoyed it. We stayed open until 11 o'clock at night. And we all had a good time until 1981. In 1981, the AIDS epidemic hit. So by that time, I had 2 stores on Castro Street and a store on Market Street in San Francisco. And we literally took care of thousands and thousands and thousands of people. Many of our employees were sick with HIV. And at that time, there was no cocktail. Mm-hmm. So I'd go home every night, and on the way home, I'd stop to see a friend who was dying and spend time with them during that period of time. So we know what it's like to be a frontline worker. And since we're into caregiving now, I do want to say I lost my entire generation of people in San Francisco. Yeah. It was a time when we were too busy to be sad. We worked with SF AIDS Foundation. We worked with Stop AIDS. We worked with every community service we could, but it brought us all together as a community. Mm-hmm. And it was a sad time. There were people who couldn't work 8-hour shifts, so we gave them 4 2-hour shifts. because we knew that people had to be connected to be part of the community.
Yeah.
And it was a really interesting time, because among all the sadness and among the very, very difficult times, it made us cohesive as a community. And there was no outside help really until they put the quilt on the mall, until Elizabeth Taylor got involved when Rock Hudson got sick. And we spent years and years and years taking care of each other.
Mm. Yeah. Very, very difficult time. And, you were amazingly running that large of a business, and then, tending to so many people personally, as well. But I'd like to go back to one comment you made, and that is Allan Turing. Oh, if he were alive today, he was hot. I'm sorry. He was a very handsome man. But yeah, he's been one of my idols. As interestingly, just last night, I was also watching a documentary of the actor Tad Hunter, if that name happens to ring a bell. If not, on Amazon Prime Video, look Tad Hunter up. He was an actor who was right alongside Rock Hudson and so forth, and he was gay, and he talked about in this hour and a half or so long documentary a lot about some of the things that you're talking about as well. It was just very, very interesting and enlightening. And so you were not only a retail store, you were basically almost like a triage of helping people.
That's really true. I never imagined, obviously, going into the 70s and into the early 80s, that we would ever have to go through anything like this. And when it hits, it was just like COVID. It hit. It hit, and it got bigger and bigger. A good friend of mine, Bob Ross, who used to own the Bay Area Reporter, which was the local gay newspaper in San Francisco. Mm-hmm. We were very, very close friends. And he would not publish more than 2 pages of obituaries every day. I want you to imagine a large local newspaper that had 2 pages of people dying, column by column by column, on a daily basis.
Oh my gosh.
And it was a very sad time. I remember the day, I think it was in about 1997 or 1998, when he came to me and said, not one person was on my obituary, and we celebrated.
Wow.
But it was many, many, many years. And, originally, AIDS was called GRID, gay-related infectious disease. But to date, yes, we know to date that 40 million people have died of AIDS, primarily in Africa. And while it is very simple now for people to take a very small pill, people are still dying every day. They haven't found a vaccine in 40 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's pretty tragic. And in those countries too, it's, in part large to the lack of basic services, the lack of basic medical attention, and the homophobia and stigma that keeps people in the closet and, on the down low. So it's still a very tragic situation all over the world, but in particular for it there. So
I'm really glad. I'm sorry, Dennis.
Yeah, no, go right ahead.
No, I was going to say that I'm particularly happy to be spending this time with you today, because it's Pride Month. One of the things that we've been looking at now is the mental health of gay seniors who go back into nursing homes, and they have to go back to the closet. Mm-hmm. And I want you to imagine what it's like for somebody to live their life as they genuinely are, and then being in a strange situation where they don't have the support, because Most of us have families we choose, but when you get older and your friends die and your families are not that close, you go into a very strange place if you have an illness. And I think it's a really important thing for people to understand and hopefully reach out to people who are getting older and to give them some help, because company is really important at that stage of life.
You're absolutely right. I believe one of the articles that I've written was based on a study in and around that situation. And I do know there's been a couple of senior living centers specifically for LGBT that has opened in the last few years. But of course, they may not be, accessible either location wise or financial wise. So that's really does seem to be an area that needs a lot of focus, and even for what you'd say is not LGBT specific senior living centers, is the kind of attention that the LGBT community has been pushing on corporate America for employee rights and employee equality. That same kind of push really needs to start happening with all of the senior care facility centers. That would be an amazing thing to ensure that that they're certified LGBT friendly, that their staff get trained, so that hopefully people can then at that point, find a facility where they are and within their budget. And so that's a really great segue to really talk about Extended Touch and what you're doing there.
Can I talk to you about gay.net and gay.com first?
Oh, absolutely.
I'd like to do that.
Sure.
We had thousands and thousands of people visit our store from all over the world before and during the AIDS epidemic. There weren't as many, of course, during the AIDS epidemic. And I recognized the fact that there was this new thing. It was called the internet. And the World Wide Web was not yet public. And I thought that we could reach out to LGBT people all over the world. And so I bought a bulletin board service, which at that time could make little X's and O's and draw pictures. And we got together 10 of the largest LGBT newspapers in the biggest cities, and I published their news, and we put up a site. And first year we brought in 10,000 people. We're actually calling in long distance to first 8 modems, then 16 modems. And when the 17th person wanted to get on, the 16th person actually had to leave. It was a great moment in a couple of ways. The first is there was somebody in Boston who was one of our first customers, and he couldn't get on the entire month. And he wrote to me, and these people were paying $10 a month plus very expensive long distance charges. And he said, I haven't been able to get on for a month. I'm going to have to leave. And I was a retailer. So as a retailer, I knew that you always make your customer happy. And I said, you can have a free month. And he said, really? And 24 years later, that man is my husband. We formed an amazing relationship. We spoke for 2 years, trying to make it better for all the other people who were on the service. We merged gay.net and gay.com. And by 1999, we had 4 million people who were monthly visitors, monthly members. They were speaking about 5 million hours a month at that particular point in time. And my husband, Al, and I left the company in 1999. And by 2004, the company went public, which was interesting because it was the first LGBT company to do so.
Wow.
And they went on for a couple of years, and then they merged with Here Media, and Here Media ran them up until a couple of years ago. So it was a very important time, I think, in my life and in the life of a lot of people who managed to get together for the first time. They were isolated, they were lonely, and when we had our first commitment ceremony in 1997, we actually had friends that we had made over gay.net, gay.com, who came down and came to our commitment ceremony. And we're still friends to them to this day. So it was a wonderful time in our lives. It was a wonderful time in my life. And I just wanted to mention that because I think it was very seminal in terms of what we're doing right now.
Yeah, very, very, very interesting. And I appreciate you bringing that up because you have done so much and that slipped my mind. So I appreciate that. Yeah, huge history. I mean, who doesn't know gay.com, right? Seriously, who doesn't know that?
Young people, but they have a lot of places to go and a lot of things to do. And you know, I have to say that the people who are younger they still have a tough time. It's very difficult, regardless of who you are. So when I was a kid growing up, I read about Allan Turing, and when I looked in the World Book Encyclopedia, which people used at that time, I found out that I was disabled, I was unlawful, and it kept me in the closet for 25 years. People today don't have that same thing, but we know that throughout the country, there are laws being written every single day that are actually anti-LGBT. And I think we still have the same responsibilities, of course, to go out and defend ourselves. What I'm hoping, and we'll tell you this about Extended Touch, I'm hoping that we can even the tables a little bit and create something that will give us great respect. Because what we need is not to defend ourselves. We need to be proud of who we are and what we've done for the general population, as well as for our own people. But we did form a community, Dennis, and that community is palpable. It makes you and I naturally friends. It allows me, when I speak to somebody who is in our LGBT community, to feel comfortable, and it creates more loyalty. And that's what we're going to do now with Extended Touch.
Absolutely. And yeah, it's really sad, you know, here in the US, all the various, you know, laws that the GOP Republican Party with their extreme right-wing base, pandering to the extreme, are just trying to do damage to people, to take away, you know, basic humanity. It's pretty sad. And then looking around the world, I will share with you too, curating news every day, as I do, hours and hours a day, and getting messages from people on LinkedIn. You know, like just today, I got one from someone from India looking for a job, from a young lesbian person. But sometimes I get messages from people who are in dire situations, and, you know, they message me, you know, asking for help. How do they get out? And, you know, I have a page on the site on OutBüro.com for asylum seekers, but, you know, gosh, I'm only one person, right? So I have to like provide them that, but there's not much else I can do. And I mean, some days things that people share with me just literally makes me cry. Because they're just in horrible situations, and I can't wait for the day where everyone can be themselves and be wherever they want to be simultaneously.
Well, as you know, I sent you a letter. I have a friend in Ottawa named Nicole Dawes, and she met somebody who identified themselves as he, she, we, they, and him. And I sent the letter to you, Dennis, because I know you understood that. Mm-hmm. And as it turned out, and you gave me a little follow-up on this, this person is an amazing human being and is going to help a lot of people. And really all all they really wanted to do was get into the mix and help out. So, I think that the idea of community, it goes across all different strata, all different kinds of people. I use the word gay sometimes instead of LGBTQ, and I don't mean to be pejorative, but it's how I grew up. It was a word that was hard for me to say, but the fact is everybody does deserve their own distinct label as they wish to speak and to be respected for it.
Absolutely.
We talked about politics a minute ago. I'm very happy to be apolitical right now. And there's a reason for it. And the reason for it is we're taking care of people's health and their well-being and their caregiving. And there are no politics. There is no difference. There is no difference from somebody who is sick who was a Republican, or somebody who is sick who is a Democrat, or somebody who is ill in some other form of politics. Mm-hmm. And I like being in this space because it really gathers everybody together.
Mm. Yes, and it's definitely a time of need, and regardless of someone's political identities or lack thereof, or sexual identities or lack thereof, everyone deserves respect and needs help now and then. So great. Well, let's share a little bit more about what Extended Touch is for our listeners and watchers.
Well, everybody knows what a dating app is, particularly your listeners and watchers. And but what they don't know is that we have opened up Extended Touch, which is a platform, a network for people to come in and discuss their caregiving issues. This is for family caregivers. And there are 65 million non-paid caregivers who are taking care of their loved ones. Mm-hmm. And there are a lot of organizations that are helping people right now in everything from autism to veterans assistance to Alzheimer's. What we are doing is we're bringing everybody together. So our experiences opening up gay.net, gay.com, taught us something. It taught us that people who are isolated and people who are lonely, they have mental health issues. Once they get to contact another person, and once they have somebody that they can trust, it changes their life. So Extended Touch is a place where people can go. They can choose from more than 30 categories. It has to do with other people's health, people that they're caregiving for. This is specifically for family caregivers. And they can ask for help, or they can go and they can say, I can help somebody else. I'll give you an example. My mom was diagnosed with Alzheimer's about 10 years ago. And over that 10-year period, she declined. And I was able to go down and visit once a month. I live in Sausalito, which is near San Francisco. She was with my sister, who was in Texas. And when I flew down there the first time, my sister and I had to go to therapy twice for her to take a week off because she was so burned out after taking care of my sister for so many years. Mm-hmm. She brought me to an Alzheimer's support group. There were 6 people there. And there were over 1 million people in the Rio Grande Valley. And there were more than 6 people with Alzheimer's. Mm. And what it really showed me more than anything else is how many people are left out of the system, how many people don't have the information they need. So at Extended Touch, somebody could come in who maybe their dad just got an Alzheimer's diagnosis, and they could find somebody like me who has been through 8 years of it, and I would be more than happy to talk to them and help guide them through. Now, we have a platform that it's not a medical platform, but even though that it's not, and it's also not a social platform, it's a platform for help. So the real issue here is, how do you get one person who understands who you are and then moves forward into local nonprofits? So one of the things that we did at Extended Touch is we did market research. We had 94 interns last year from colleges and universities all over the United States. They did market research, and they did some other work for us as well. And we now have resources in 250 cities in the United States and Canada, covering over 30 subjects. Mm. So the idea is you sign up for Extended Touch, which is completely free. It will always be free. And then you go and you look for somebody who can help you, or generously you look for people who need help, and you bond together over the same situation. And then you go and you look for a local nonprofit that can help you on a continuing basis. Mm. So we're really not interested in taking people and grabbing them and holding on to them. We're interested in connecting people and then sending them to places where they can get more help.
Awesome.
And so this is about, and I mentioned to you a few minutes ago about the general society. We believe that we have a solution to tie all the networks together and to bring together people so that they can help each other out. We are absolutely 100% open about being an LGBT company. And my greatest wish is for somebody to understand, or for everybody to understand, that we are natural caregivers. And we really are not interested in being by ourselves. We're interested in caring for the population. There are more LGBTQ caregivers, percentage-wise, than the general population.
I've heard that.
Yeah. And we're doing a good job. What I would really like is for our place in life to be normalized. And by normalized, I'd like us to be recognized for the fact that we may or may not have children. We may not do the same things that the general population does, but our differences are slight, and our commitment to the general society is huge. Mm-hmm. And I would like us to be respected for that, because I think it changes the conversation. You know, when Anita Bryant got hit in the face with a pie in Florida, I thought everybody would laugh and it would be all over, but it wasn't. It didn't even start. So, we're reaching a point now where people understand that diversity and inclusion is very important. On Extended Touch, we have a subject. It's called cultural competence. It's about taking the time to listen to other people and to really understand who they are, and to be able to communicate with them openly and to share your ideas. Wow. My fondest hope, and I know this is already happening, is for a poor woman in Mississippi who may be a person of color, whose husband has Alzheimer's, speaking to a wealthy man in San Francisco who has exactly the same situation. And because Extended Touch is anonymous, they don't know anything except that they're dealing with the same health issues, trying to help each other out.
Okay.
And if we can level the playing field, we're going to get an awful lot of people on board who will be able to help each other. Another issue is COVID. COVID has left so many people with PTSD, with terrible trauma. Even now, when we've tamped down the virus here in the United States, we're still losing 500 people a day. and it's destroying families every day and creating so many more caregivers and so many more issues. So, I think that there's going to be a lot of self-care. And if you're anonymous, you can come to Extended Touch, and you don't have to say who your name is, or you can make up a name. You can use any of the social network services to sign on, so you don't have to remember a new password, which is a pain for everybody. Or you can enter your email, and that's encrypted and kept in a remote location and will never be divulged. So we really believe that the ability for people to speak honestly and truthfully about themselves is a very, very important thing. I get new people signing on every day, and there are people who have borderline situations, and they quite frankly are afraid to speak to anybody about what's going on, and their issues run deep. Now, we put a disclaimer up, and our disclaimer, we get people every day coming on. They're ashamed. They don't know who to speak to. They're reaching out for help. Fortunately, we're able to refer them to nonprofits who understand what to do.
Yeah, and there's one thing I'd like to interject here, and for those listening and watching, and be sure, folks, that if you have anyone in your family or friend circle, that you Google caregiver rights. Okay, caregiver rights. It's a whole list of rights that you or that person as a caregiver have, in the sense of, just Google it. I'm sure you know what it is, Andy, but that was very enlightening. So because sometimes people will get into situations where they aren't taking care of themselves. They are feeling a bit abused, maybe are actually being abused by the person who is sick. Or ill or whatever. So, because sometimes people, when they're sick or ill, are not on their best behavior.
That's for sure, Dennis. And I think you made a really good point. Being a caregiver is very, very difficult. Long-term caregivers often die before the people they're taking care of. They don't take care of themselves. And they're isolated and they're lonely.
Yeah, and often don't have a break like your sister did,
yes,
it's tough.
And new caregivers, they don't know what's going on. They're shocked. They're unprepared. And so what we're trying to do is bring people together, just like we did in the 1990s.
Yeah.
And so having done this before, I understand the most important thing is to leave no one behind. And so we have a technology company in addition to Extended Touch. And we've built some very good technology to bring people together. As we get more and more people aboard, we'll be using AI to get better matches for people. But the most important thing is for people to have other people and to know that they can trust that there's a place where they can come and they can get help. I have to say, I never expected to start a new company at age 70. And I have to say it also is the pleasure of my life. I spend hours and hours and hours every day working on it because I know that it's going to need that type of work. We look at it as a global effort. So we're starting here in the United States and Canada, but people in Europe are getting older than the people in the United States. Mm-hmm. And China, they had a one-child policy. And in about 10 years, there's going to be one poor man who's going to be taking care of 2 parents and 4 grandparents. Mm-hmm. And typically people who live in Latin America don't put their elders in nursing homes, but they still have a lack of information. Mm-hmm. So we really see a world coming together to help each other out. You know, in some ways, we've done this with COVID, with vaccines. I would say we are starting to share with the world. And, but, you know, it's the same situation we had with AIDS. The rich countries are all getting vaccinated. The poor countries are out of control.
Yeah.
And here in the U.S., we're looking at things and we're saying, well, we're getting rid of it, but it's raging in India. It's raging in South America. And will continue until everybody is vaccinated, or most people are vaccinated, and we get herd immunity.
Yes.
I can't say how much I care about this particular venture, because it is actually something that is, it's going to change the way people are looking at caregiving. You can do things when you band together. And we know that from our LGBTQ community with the AIDS epidemic. People band together, they formed a community, and they help each other out. And that's what our purpose is with Extended Touch.
Well, it's amazing. And I'm sure it'll go far. I think we need the president to make a statement about Extended Touch.
and that would be absolutely fantastic. We're getting a lot of support from nonprofits. I know you're a veteran yourself, mm-hmm. and the veteran community has been just amazing. Mm. We are members of the San Diego Veterans Coalition. We're working with Wounded Warrior Foundation and many other organizations like Soldiers Angels in San Antonio, Texas, that they send packages to people who are serving so they don't feel by themselves. Mm. And so, there's many communities that are really coming together. And if you think about it, nobody has one issue. When my mom was sick with Alzheimer's, I got an Amazon show. And they used to put the Amazon show in front of her face. She couldn't remember how to use the television. She couldn't stand. Mm. She had macular degeneration. She couldn't hear. But I got to keep company with her every night. We kept company with each other while she had her dinner. And then I'd play games with her for an hour afterwards. Mm. And so to me, caregiving is about advocacy.
It's a very complicated thing, and so many people don't really realize it when they get into it, and so can appreciate all the work that you did with your own mother and everything that you're doing right now to help support others. So it's very, very, very interesting, and so telling where your entire career, from your stores and what you did there to starting, gay.com and gay.net to now this, there's a thread there, and it's all
Dennis,
about helping and connecting others.
Dennis, I never thought that I would be a caregiver my entire life. My mom passed away from Alzheimer's, thankfully before COVID, because that would have been a really horrible situation for her. My father had pancreatic cancer. My sister had breast cancer. My grandmother had stomach cancer, and my grandfather had stomach cancer. I understand how difficult it is for an individual to go through caregiving, having done it for a very, very long time. And what we want to do is we want to bring a little bit of hope. So there's many, many places you can go to feel sorry for somebody or to express an opinion. But there's nobody place to go where you can match up with somebody who shares your same issues. And so caregiving matching is a new category that caregivers haven't had before. Its focus is to bring people together. And so really what we're doing is we're working on love and inspiration and hope and support. And we're going to launch a couple of campaigns that I think will be very interesting to people. We're going to give $100 a week away to the best video that shows any one of those four things, those four virtues, really, and try to raise up the level of respect and show how great caregivers are and how great they can be. We're just going to be on TikTok. It'll be on YouTube. And we expect that we're going to get a lot of people involved in it. We're opening up we're working with interns at the University of Texas at Dallas. What we're doing is we're putting together a prototype program. And so we're bringing together educators, we're bringing together students, we're bringing together administration and alumni. And as you know, everybody graduates, there's a lot of alumni. And we're going to bring them together, and we're going to create a caregiver club at the University of Texas at Dallas. Once we've gotten that together and we have some good testimonials and we have good action, we've identified 568 other universities and colleges. We're going to send the template to all of those people, because young people, and there's more than 10 million young caregivers right now, are taking care of other people. And, you know, when you're young, you have all the hopes in the world. And what we're finding is that the young caregivers are going to help bring some people who are a little older aboard and make everybody really aware that they're there to help as well. And so we hope to spread this throughout the United States and beyond after that. I know that you probably think our ambitions are high. They are. We really want to, we want to let people have a level playing field, and we want to give people a chance. And I think that the most important thing to us about Extended Touch is that as it grows, and it's going to take a long time to grow, we're approaching some major corporations, some large associations, some not so large nonprofits, and some larger nonprofits. But we hope to spread the word throughout the population and let people know that that there's people out there to help them. I think it's very, very important.
It is very important. Having gone through a situation in my own family and still dealing with that, I know how important it is. Well, we've had you've just given us so much information. I know I want to respect your time. We're coming up here on almost an hour. So just is there anything that maybe you haven't chatted about that you would like to share with the audience before we sign off?
Yes, you are not alone. And finding another person, no matter how bad you feel or how isolated you feel, finding another person who can relate to you. And you might do nothing more than just speak to them over the internet once a day or once every couple of days and say, how are things with you? And they can say they're shitty. And you can say the same thing. It's great to have a bond with another human being. It's the strongest thing that we can possibly do, because from there, we can get help from the outside.
Absolutely. And I could not agree with you more. And again, folks, it is anonymous, and you are connected with other people in similar situations or have gone through similar situations.
Right.
So it's a great way to reach out and ask for help and or offer help. Maybe you've gone through situations before and now you would like to give back and be that support for someone else. Extended Touch, that is extendatouch.com. Now, I didn't ask you before. I tried to look it up. It's not yet like a smartphone app, correct? It's the internet only right now, correct?
Right now, it's a web app, and I'll explain to you why. After having a career of opening up retail stores, opening up a LGBT community, you never do it right the first time.
Understand.
And no matter how hard you try, you never do it right the first time. And so, particularly with COVID going on in the last year, we want to get it right first before we go out and put together, which we will be doing. We're going to be putting together Android apps. We'll be putting together iOS apps. But if you look through Extended Touch now, you'll see it is a web app. You can look at it on your phone. You can look at it on your computer.
Right.
But native apps will be coming because it makes it easier for people to connect quickly and get push messages so that they can just chat back and forth. So it's in the works and it will be coming soon.
I totally understand that. Well, Andy, I so much appreciate you taking time out of your early day to chat with us today and share all the great information about Extended Touch and your rich history.
Dennis, thank you so much for the opportunity. I really enjoyed this a lot, and I hope it helps a lot of people.
Thank you, everyone, for staying tuned to this episode of OutBüro Voices. You've been listening to Andy Cramer. Again, that is extendatouch.com. Be sure to check that out today and let people in your sphere of influence, family, friends, etc., church members, and so forth, coworkers, know about Extended Touch. Sign up today. You have a wonderful day, and we appreciate you being here. Bye-bye.